Hello and welcome to Bob's Programming Academy. In this video, we will show you how to deploy to Heroku a portfolio website built using Django, Next.js, and Material UI that uses a PostgreSQL database to store data. This portfolio website has two color themes, so we can switch from dark mode to light mode and essentially change the theme on the fly. This is part 3 of the 3-part video series. In part 1, we introduced the project, discussed the tech stack we've selected for this application, and we went in detail through the installation and setup procedures. In part 2, we demonstrated how users can customize this application and apply their own design ideas. We showed how to change the logo, text, colors, fonts, images, and so on. In this video, we will show you how to deploy this portfolio website to Heroku so that you can share it with your friends and potential employers. To get access to this project, go to the project's GitHub repository. You can find the link in the description section below. Next, press the download zip button to download the code. Once you have downloaded and unzipped the project, open it in Visual Studio Code or some other code editor of your choice. Before we start, make sure that you have all the required prerequisites installed on your machine. The prerequisites for this project are Python, Node.js, PostgreSQL, Git, Heroku command line interface, and Visual Studio Code. Alternatively, you can use some other code editor. And finally, you also need to have your own Heroku account. First, create a virtual environment in the root folder. To create a virtual environment, open the terminal and from the root directory run python -m venv. Next, activate the virtual environment by running the command source venv/bin/activate. Next, install Python packages listed in the requirements.txt file that are required for the backend part of the app. Pip install -r requirements.txt. Next, set up a PostgreSQL database. Depending on your operating system, the steps here might be slightly different, so please check the PostgreSQL documentation for your operating system. I'm using Mac. I've installed PostgreSQL using the Homebrew Package Manager, and I started the PostgreSQL database server using the command brew services start PostgreSQL. The procedure to start the server will differ depending on your operating system and the way you've installed PostgreSQL on your machine. So again, please check the PostgreSQL documentation for more information. With PostgreSQL up and running, run the command drop db -if-exist portfolio. Next, start pSQL, which is a terminal-based frontend to PostgreSQL, by running the command pSQL postgres. Next, create a new PostgreSQL database. Create database portfolio, semicolon. Next, create a new database admin user. Create user your username with superuser password, single quote, your password, single quote, semicolon. Of course, replace the strings your username and your password with your own username and a secure password of your choosing. Make sure you remember that username and password because you will need them later. For the purpose of this demonstration, I will set the username to Bob and the password to pass1234! To quit pSQL, run \q. Next, set up backend environment variables. From the root directory run touch config/.env. The touch command will create the .env file in the config directory. This command works on Mac and Linux, but not on Windows. If you are a Windows user, instead of using the command line, you can create the .env file manually by navigating in Visual Studio Code to the Explorer, clicking on the config directory, and selecting the option New File. You need to declare environment variables in the .env file. Make sure you don't use quotation marks around the strings. First, set up a secret key. Set Django's debug setting to false. The database name is portfolio. The database user and database password are the username and password of the admin user you created a few moments ago using PSQL. In my case, the database user is Bob and the database password is pass1234! Set up the database host to localhost. Next, run migrations. From the root directory, run Python manage.py make migrations. Python manage.py migrate. Next, create an admin user to access the Django admin interface. From the root directory, run Python manage.py create superuser. When prompted, enter a username, email, and password. For the purpose of this demonstration, I will set the username to Bob, no email, and the password to pass1234! You also need to install all the dependencies required for the front-end part of the application. So click on the split terminal and in the second window from the root directory, run npm install. Next, set up front-end environment variables. From the root directory, run touch.env.development touch.env.production. You need to declare environment variables in both the .env.development and .env.production files. Make sure you don't use quotation marks around the strings. The backend URL is http 127.0.0.1 port 8000. To run the application, you need to have both the backend and the frontend up and running. In one terminal window, from the root directory, run python manage.py run server. This command starts a lightweight development web server on your local machine. By default, the server runs on port 8000 on the IP address 127.0.0.1. In the other terminal window, from the root directory, run npm run dev. This command will start the development server. Go to http localhost port 3000 to view the application. Okay, so we can view the application, we can change the color theme, but there is no data. There is no hero section and there is no footer. The About, Projects, Technologies, and Contact sections are all empty. To add data to this portfolio website, we will use Django admin. To access Django admin, go to http 127.0.0.1 port 8000/admin. Sign in using the admin username and password you created a few minutes ago. In my case, the username is Bob and the password is pass1234! In the previous video, we discussed in detail adding data to Django admin, so please make sure you watch that video first. First, we will add data to the Hero section. For the Hero section of the portfolio website, we need to enter a title, subtitle, description, and image we want to have displayed in this part of the page. We refresh the page and we now have the data in the Hero section of the portfolio website. Similarly, we need to add data to the About, Projects, Technologies, Contact and Footer sections. Next, we will add data to the Footer section. Next, we will add data to the About section. Next, we will add data to the Projects section. First, we need to add tags. I will add tags Python, JavaScript, Django, React, Next.js, Material UI, Machine Learning, and PostgreSQL. Next, we will add projects. Next, we will add data to the Technologies section. Each technology we want to display on the portfolio website requires a name and an icon. I will add Python, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, Material UI, Django, React, Next.js, PostgreSQL, TensorFlow, and Git. Next, we will add data to the Contact section. Here, we need to add our physical address, email, and phone number. To display your location on the map in the Contact section, you need to set both the latitude and longitude of your location in the contact.js file in src components. Okay. Now we have the data in all sections of the portfolio website. Now that we have the portfolio website up and running, it's time to deploy it to Heroku. First, create a proc file in the root folder. From the root directory, run touch proc file. The proc file is a Heroku-specific file that specifies the commands that are executed by our application on startup. web:/g_unicorn config.wsgi-log-file --. The web process is where we pass our gunicorn config. Green Unicorn, commonly shortened to gunicorn, is a web server gateway interface HTTP server implementation that is commonly used to run Python web applications. First, we pass the wsgi file, which is located in the config directory. Next, we pass the --log-- file flag, which specifies that the log file should get routed to Heroku. Next, create a runtime.txt file. If we don't specify a Python version, Heroku will install the default one. However, if you want to pick your Python version, you need to create a runtime.txt file. From the root directory, run touch runtime.txt. Python versions supported by Heroku are listed on the following website: devcenter.heroku.com/articles/python-support #supported-runtimes. In the runtime.txt file, specify your Python version with the prefix python-, followed by the major, minor, and patch version you want your application to run on. In my case, it's Python-3.9.10. Next, specify the Node.js and npm versions to be used on Heroku in the engine section of the package.json file. Always specify the Node.js and npm versions that match the runtime you're developing and testing with. To find your versions locally, run node-version npm-version. When deploying this portfolio website to Heroku, we've decided to use the approach that we use Next.js to pre-render the application pages and serve them as Django templates. Therefore, next, we need to add the following deploy script to the script section of the package.json file. First, we generate and optimize for production version of the Next.js frontend part of the application using the npm run build command. Next, we export the frontend to static HTML via the next export-o output command. Next, we rename the output directory to static. Finally, we run the integration_script.py file and place the HTML pages within Django's required template directory. Next.js pre-rendered HTML files are small and bare bones, but they still need some accompanying JS and CSS bundles listed in the head section of the src_pages_document.js file to render correctly. When we serve an HTML page as a Django template, it will not be able to find the JS and CSS bundles. Since Django typically looks for static files in the static directory, we need to add the static template tags so that Django knows where to find the JS and CSS files. We use a Python script in the integration_script.py file to achieve this goal. This Python script uses Beautiful Soup, which is a parsing library used for web scraping purposes to get data out of HTML and XML files. Next, run the deploy script. From the root directory, run npm run deploy. Here we have the resulting static directory. Next, Django needs to collect all the static files into a directory called static files so that they can be served up in production. This location is defined in the static root variable in the settings.py file in the config directory. From the root directory, run python manage.py collect static. Here we have the resulting static files directory. Next, log into your Heroku account. Go to https://id.heroku.com/login. Create a new app via Heroku dashboard. The URL is https://dashboard.heroku.com/apps. Click the Create New App button. Select an app name and specify a region where your application will be deployed. Click the Create App button. Next, add your app to the allowed hosts list in the settings.py file in the config directory. Replace the string your app name with the name of your own application. You can find it on Heroku dashboard, the settings tab. While we are looking at the settings.py file, we can go through a few important parts of this file. In the installed app setting, we have Django course headers and white noise. Django course headers adds cross-origin resource sharing headers to responses. This allows in-browser requests to our Django application from other origins. White noise allows our Django app to serve its own static files, making it a self-contained unit that can be deployed anywhere without relying on Nginx, Amazon S3, or any other external service, which is especially useful on Heroku. Of course, we also have to configure the middleware setting. Course middleware should be placed as high as possible, especially before any middleware that can generate responses, such as Django's common middleware and white noise's white noise middleware. If the course middleware is not before them, it will not be able to add the course headers to these responses. Here we have the template setting, and mentioned earlier Django's required template directory. Next we have the databases setting, where we have configured our PostgreSQL database. All the sensitive data such as database name, username or password are kept private using environment variables and stored in the .env file we discussed earlier. Since the .env file is typically used for the configuration of our application, which often includes sensitive information like database credentials and API keys, it is best practice to exclude this information from our Git repository using git ignore. The approach here is that the sensitive configuration information should have higher security than the source code. Next, we have all the static file settings and media settings for user-uploaded content. Django's creators wanted it to be fast and scalable, so right from the beginning, Django was designed to make it easy to serve static files such as images, CSS, and JavaScript from a different server to the one the main Django application was running on. Django achieves speed and scalability by keeping static files in a different directory to the rest of the application. Serving static files from a separate server requires the configuration of the static URL and static root settings. The static files dirs list serves the same function for static files as the dirs list does for templates. In this case, we are telling Django to look for static files in the static directory in our side root. We mentioned earlier that we use here white noise to allow our Django app to serve its own static files, making it a self-contained unit. White noise comes with a storage backend that automatically takes care of compressing our files and creating unique names for each version so they can safely be cached forever. To use it, we need to add the static file storage setting shown here. We also set course origin allow all to true. Next, add Heroku build packs. On Heroku dashboard, go to Settings, scroll down to the Build Packs section and click Add Build Pack. Add two build packs, Node.js and Python. When deploying an application to Heroku, adding the environment variables in the .env file is not enough. We need to set the environment variables for our application on Heroku. We can do it either through a command line or via the Heroku website interface. Here we will use the second method and set up config vars. On Heroku dashboard, go to Settings, scroll down to the config vars section and click Reveal config vars. Here, add all the variables stored in the config/.env and .env.production files and one additional variable, disable collect static. You need to set up the following variables: secret key, debug, database name, database user, database path, database host, backend URL, and disable collect static. Next, set up PostgreSQL on Heroku. With Heroku CLI installed, from the root directory run Heroku login. Enter any key to go to your web browser to complete the login. The Heroku CLI then logs you in automatically. Next, provision Heroku Postgres by running the command Heroku add-ons create Heroku -PostgreSQL plan name app name. If you are using a free plan, set the plan name to hobby-dev. The app name, in my case, is Bob's Programming Academy. Finally, push your local PostgreSQL database to Heroku Postgres. The app name in my case is Bob's Programming Academy. The username is Bob. The password is pass1234! The host is localhost. The database name is portfolio. The Heroku Postgres DB name is this string right here, PostgreSQL-flexible-33442. But of course, in your case, that value will be different. Next, select the deployment method. On Heroku dashboard, go to Deploy, scroll down to the Deployment Method section, and select your preferred deployment method to see the deployment instructions. For the purpose of this demonstration, we select Deploy using Heroku Git. If you haven't done it yet, log into your Heroku account by running the command Heroku login. Next, initialize a Git repository in the project's root directory. From the root directory, run git init. Next, create a Heroku remote. Git remotes are versions of your repository that live on other servers. You deploy your app by pushing its code to a special Heroku hosted remote that is associated with your app. From the root directory, run Heroku git :remote-a appname. Finally, deploy your application by running the commands git add dot. The git add dot command adds all changes in the working directory to the staging area. Git commit -am and your comment between the quotation marks. The git commit command takes the stage snapshot and commits it to the project history. To deploy your app to Heroku, use the git push command to push the code from your local repository's master branch to your Heroku remote. Git push Heroku master. Finally, our application has been deployed to Heroku. To view the deployed application, go to Heroku dashboard and click the Open App button. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel. It really helps with the algorithm to get our videos out there to more and more people so we can continue making them. We really appreciate it. Also, you can leave a comment below on what you would like to see in future videos. Thanks for watching.